This narrated slideshow is a short video in a series of studies on dynamic definitions of New Testament words, and it's presented by Jim Fowler of Christ in You Ministries. The subject of this particular study is justification. Given the scarcity of the use of words justification, justify, and justified in the New Covenant literature, and the definitive prominence of the theme of justification by faith in the Protestant Reformation, there seems to be a disproportionate emphasis on the doctrine of justification in Protestantism for the last 500 years. Martin Luther declared, "This is the chief article from which all other doctrines flow." And John Calvin wrote, "Justification is the main hinge on which Christian religion turns." Why has this lopsided phenomena occurred? Throughout the centuries of Christian thought, there has been a tendency to structure its teaching about God's relationship with man in a legal and forensic paradigm. God has been viewed as a cosmic lawgiver and judge, and the reconciling relationship of man with God has, for the most part, been cast in the legal courtroom terminology of justice, acquittal, pardon, and forgiveness. The words justification, justify, and justified are translations of a group of Greek words which are based on the root word dike. In Greek mythology, Dike was the god of justice, which explains the legal context of the words. But in the grace-dominating context of the New Covenant, the Greek words convey a meaning of the righteous character of God and a right relationship with God, which is why most English versions of the Scriptures translate this group of words with the meaning of righteousness. At the time of the 16th century Reformation, the word justification was still used primarily in a legal context, wherein God was entirely objectified as an austere judge in the heavenly courtroom who declared faithful individuals right with God on the redemptive work of Jesus Christ and declared them to have right standing and status in the heavenly bookkeeping department. But what does that word justification mean in contemporary English usage? It is primarily a computer term used in reference to the alignment of the margins of a body of text in digital word processing. Text can be aligned with left justification, or center justification, or right justification. But what correlation does this have with theological justification? Perhaps we should jettison the word justification in our explanation of God's dealing with mankind and consign it to the archives of obsolete theological terminology available for those engaged in historical research of outdated explanations. In conjunction with most English translations of the New Testament, however, we need to retain the word righteousness as the more accurate translation of the original Greek words. Jesus Christ is the righteous one. We find that 3 times in the book of Acts, by whose one act of righteousness, and that's on the cross, there resulted righteousness of life to all men, Romans 5:18. So far more than Christians being objectively declared righteous by the divine judge in a faraway heavenly courtroom, Christians become partakers of Christ and actually subjectively partake of Christ's righteousness as his indwelling presence functions in their lives. Christians are made righteous. We see this in Romans 5:19 and 2 Corinthians 5:21 in identification and union with his divine righteousness. And henceforth, the Christian community is obliged to declare the full personal implications of righteousness in Christ, what was previously referred to as theological justification.